After spending 2 days in the area around Trujillo, I still wanted to dedicate at least a couple more to round up the first leg of my tour around Peru. And so I wanted to stay in the northwest region in order to learn more about the ancient civilizations of this area. You saw in the previous videos that I had already looked at some of the archaeological sites from the Moché and the Chimu civilizations. And I wanted to also look at the area around Lambayeque, which is toward the northwest of the country. And Lambayeque is an important hotbed or a major site for understanding the archaeological history of two major civilizations of northwest Peru, both of them predating the Inca, specifically the Moche and the Lambayeque societies, that Lambayeque immediately following the decline of the Moche civilization around the 9th century AD. And this is a really fascinating subject that I wanted to learn more about. I had gone to this part of Peru in order to learn about these societies because the ultimate purpose of my travel was to research toward a science fiction series that I have been looking to write that would draw from the indigenous civilizations of the past, present, and future. And in order to travel to Chiclayo, I took a bus from Trujillo, and the distance itself was along the 1N highway that would run along a good part of the northwest coast of the country. And you can see on this map that Trujillo is in the red dot and Chiclayo is in the green. It was only about 208 kilometers, according to Google Maps, which would convert to roughly 130 miles. But the actual travel by bus would take almost 4 hours. And along the route, there were many vast stretches of desert and mountain that were also very inspiring for the story and the settings that I would look to describe in the writings that I would like to do. And I finally arrived into Chiclayo. I checked into the hotel, and it was not until the next day that I would actually visit the city of Lambayeque. I took a combi, like these collective travels that kind of almost like carpooling that regularly commuted between Chiclayo and Lambayeque. I think it was about 40-minute drive from one site to the next. And while I was in Lambayeque, it was just an extraordinarily rich center for learning about the indigenous societies. There were two major museums in the area. And the first of these that I visited was the main point of the visit to Lambayeque, and that was to see the Museum of the Royal Tombs of Sipán. So after my visit to the inside the museum, I had a chance to stop and at the cafe, which also served as the gift shop. And if you've followed my Facebook page, the Shaman's Cross Facebook page, you'll see that I very commonly reference my hashtag mandatory cappuccino. And you can see me here savoring my cup, which I like to do, especially during museum trips, regardless what country I'm in. It's one of my favorite ways to kind of catch my breath and have a little caffeine with something that I always enjoy to drink. And you can see me posing in front of a replica, a photograph that displays one of the masterworks that is presented inside the museum itself. And inside the gift shop, I found a variety of works that I never would have expected to encounter. And these were all so interesting, but I could choose only a couple because I still had some more traveling to do while I was still around Lambayeque, and I didn't want to carry everything. So I had to kind of refine or narrow down my options to just a couple of pieces that I thought were especially noteworthy. One of them is a grammar on the Muchica language, and this will be my review in the next part of the series. But the one I want to talk about now is this DVD called The Lord of Sipán, or the El Señor de Sipán, which was a Spanish production that was published in 2008. And it is a documentary that runs for a little under 50 minutes, and it is a wonderful review of the history of the archaeology, the history of the research that was involved after the discovery of the tombs of Sipán in 1987. And this was an international sensation because nobody had ever seen such a richly preserved and intact collection of artifacts belonging to any civilization in Peru. Many of the Peruvian civilizations had been plundered and looted. And in fact, the documentary talks much about this, about the damage to the archaeological record that looting can cause. And so it is very important for archaeologists to collaborate with locals rather than work against them. And so, in order to bring in communal interest in the understanding the history of the area and how it pertains to the modern day descendants. The documentary alternates between interviews with archaeologists who directed the excavation and dramatic reenactments of the life of the Moché peoples. And many of the reenactments use replicas of the jewelry and the clothing that were worn by the nobles and the commoners. And in order to respect the copyrights, I will not provide any stills in this video, but I will provide a link in the description to this video that goes to a Facebook album hosted by the museum itself that shows stills from the documentary. And it is many of the scenes are reconstructed from the art that is portrayed in the jewelry, the ceramics, the murals, and many of the other media by which the Moché recorded aspects of their culture, their ideas, and their values. One last really neat detail about the Lord of Sipán, or that I got at the gift shop at the site museum of the Royal Tombs of Sipán, is that although the narration is provided in English, the enactments themselves are spoken in the Muchica language, which is used among some of the indigenous peoples in Northwest Peru. And I love these opportunities for the Peruvian media to bridge between the ancient civilizations and the contemporary indigenous people. And this is also a nice segue into the next video in this series on my books from Peru, because it will be the other purchase that I got at the gift shop, which was a vocabulary of the Muchica language. And so I will be talking about this in the next video, and I look forward to seeing you there.